Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee, and we are excited to be here with you today. And we're going to talk about one of Sandra's favorite subjects.
Yeah, we're going to talk about soul retrieval. And soul retrieval is very important work in shamanism. When I wrote my book on soul retrieval and I had to do a lot of research, I'm not a researcher, but my publisher asked me to research. And what I discovered in doing my research is that almost every culture around the world believes that illness is due to the loss of the soul. And so it was very interesting for me, for my own helping spirit, to introduce me to this work. And I want to just share a very interesting story because it's nowhere in any of my books. And I think only a few students know this story about myself. I was so suicidal. I loved working with people who were dying because I loved taking them. Part of shamanic work is psychopomp work. Psychopomp means conductor of souls, where at the point of death, if a soul needs help transitioning to the non-ordinary realms, it's the role of the shaman to do the psychopomp work to bring them over. So that was my favorite work. I loved doing psychopomp work because it got me to the territories of death all the time where I felt real comfortable. So my power animal taught me how to do soul retrieval, and I'll share that story briefly. And he said to me, I taught this to you intentionally because you're always trying to take people to the other side. I'm teaching you how to go to the other side to bring people back to their body so that you're going to learn how to live again.
Wow.
It was such a brilliant lesson. But what happened was I was at a workshop and a woman had a journey where she met her deceased father in the journey. And he said to her that he could not move on because she had not forgiven him for raping her at the age of 3. And she came to me, and I knew nothing about soul retrieval at this time. And she said, "Can you help me?" So I said, well, let's meet at 7 a.m. before class, and I'll journey and I'll see what I can find. And my power animal showed me how whenever we experience a trauma, a part of our soul, a part of our essence, a part of our life force separates from our body in order to survive the experience. So people who've been in accidents or incest survivors or people who have been abused on any level oftentimes watch themselves like they're looking down during the traumatic event, and that's called shock. And from a shamanic point of view, shock is how we survive trauma. We go away while the pain is occurring so we don't get the full pain. And so we go into shock to forget the trauma. But if the soul doesn't come back on its own, then it's time to find somebody trained in the practice of soul retrieval to track down where your soul fled for safety and to bring it physically back into your body again. And it's an actual physical experience. You actually feel physically different after your soul's been returned.
Mm-hmm. I remember I was at Omega, and I did the first shamanic workshop I ever did was a soul retrieval weekend. And now that I look back at them, they're like, well, it was probably a little bit more advanced than I probably should have started, but I did. And luckily for me, I was working with this really a lot more advanced woman than I was. And she brought back a part of my soul that all I know is that you were talking about was that it was a real thing, because within a month I sold my restaurant, I packed up my house, I moved from Syracuse, New York to California. I thought I was going on a little sabbatical, and there was a part of me that couldn't go forward there without this other part. And once I had an inkling of what that was, I was able to get more aligned to my soul's destiny.
Right. Yeah.
And I that, you know, and you remember those experiences because everything did change.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes soul retrieval can be very subtle. And, in a shamanic culture, when a client went for a soul retrieval, they didn't tell the shaman what to do, number one, and they didn't judge the shaman afterwards. They were scared. They were afraid of the shamans in their culture. They were part of the mystery and oftentimes lived alone, and so they were really revered, and bringing shamanism into a Western psychologically sophisticated culture has been unbelievable. I wrote my first article on soul retrieval for a shamanic magazine that's not in existence anymore, Shaman's Drum. I wrote it in 1989, and it changed my life. I started getting hundreds of letters a week sharing the most unbelievable stories of abuse, and I answered every single one of them, and I spent 6 hours on the phone talking to the most traumatized people. We have so much trauma in this culture, and in a shamanic culture, it was understood that it was important to try to bring back the soul 3 days after a trauma occurred, because otherwise an illness could enter, dissociation can happen, a variety of emotional and mental issues start to come up when we're missing a part of our vital soul, our vital essence, our vital life force, who we are. And so when you look at the eyes of people in our culture today and you see the emptiness, you see the soulfulness, you see if people's souls are home by looking into their eyes, the light that shines out of them. And so in shamanic cultures, it was really important to perform a soul retrieval at 3 days from a trauma. In our culture, we're going back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, sometimes 80 years looking for lost soul parts. In my research, no shaman anywhere in the world ever had to do that. They just had to go back 3 days. That's a big difference. And there's oftentimes a story that's shown by the spirits, but the spirits speak in metaphor, and a lot of the practitioners today aren't emotionally mature enough to know how to translate the healing stories of the spirits. And so oftentimes they end up re-traumatizing a client, not because of the work of the spirits, but the words of the practitioner, because they planted seeds that grew into a plant that didn't belong there. And so I'm very, very strong, and have been since the 1980s, on how powerful soul retrieval is and how carefully we have to train practitioners, because I've watched clients end up in mental institutions committing suicide after soul retrieval. And trust me, trust what that does to my heart. I've trained thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have had soul retrievals and have been healed and are so grateful for what's happened. But as a teacher and as a practitioner, we have to honor the people who got hurt. And we have to understand how powerful this practice is and the depth of training that you need in order to heal a client instead of traumatize a client.
I think I traumatized a few when I was learning. I know I did. It's just like 10 years after a soul retrieval, somebody called me back and told me how they were still mad at me, and I'm thinking like, well, there must have been some truth there that it's so powerful still, like there must, and I've learned over the years that just because I see it doesn't mean you need to know it. And, like in that interpretation of and I think for me, a lot of that is what I say, but what I don't say. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of times it's like, okay, it's not even that necessary to talk about that particular aspect of it. Let the energy go where it needs to go and do the work. And, because sometimes, people aren't necessarily even ready to hear the story. Right. You might give, like I had a soul part that came and left for years. I mean, there was one point when we were going to give it an exorcism and let it go because it wasn't ready to it wasn't ready to live in harmony with the rest of me. And so every time the part was brought back in, it would be the hateful child sitting in the middle of all of this nice work I had done. And, as much as you could heal it, the part was still broken. And so I don't know what your experience is with that, but it was like, finally, we found a place where this aspect of myself could live in alignment with the rest of who I was becoming and be part of the healing instead of the part was so invested in the brokenness. And I think that happens a lot. I mean, have you experienced that?
I did until I worked with my spirits to change the work. So this is what happened. I was training all these people, and I was doing 6 soul retrievals a day myself and teaching 40 workshops a year and writing a book. And we all started having these experiences like Renee's talking about. So I went back to my spirits, and back then we didn't have computers. There was no email or anything. And so I had a soul retrieval newsletter. I taught 5-day soul retrieval trainings, and every 6 months I wrote a newsletter, a long newsletter that got mailed out to each person who ever took a workshop with me about questions people were asking about soul retrieval, coming from practitioners I trained, and the problems that were coming up. So what happened was my spirits came to me and said, no, this is crazy. People are getting too stuck on their stories. People are getting too into their egos. It's the ego. Because soul is just essence. Mm-hmm. It's not a personality. It's just essence. It's just energy. It actually has it has no words. It has no behavior. It's energy. It's beautiful energy that's the destiny of our lives. And so what my spirit started to share with me was stop sharing why the soul left. Start sharing why it's coming back, the gifts, the talents, the strengths. I can dream again because I lost my soul at the age of 7 when my teachers told me to stop daydreaming and stare at the board. And now I can dream. I have that part back. I can dream again. I lost my soul in a divorce, and I got that part back. I can love again. So focus on the gifts that's returned, not all the bad stuff that happens, because that happened. It's over. And then the other way I changed my work, and the reason I brought up the Soul Retrieval newsletter was, here's a bit of magic. I wrote how I changed my work, how the spirits told me to change my work. And guess what? I know you can guess. I got at least 90% of my population's letters back saying the day I changed my work, their work changed too.
Mm-hmm.
That their spirits told them the same thing. And there were a few other things that I'll pass on because of timing, where everybody wrote me back and said, yeah, my spirits changed the work too. So it's like soul retrieval is this ancient method, but we had to keep changing it. Not because we didn't know what we were doing. It was because our clients were so different than the clients that shamans had to work on, that the methods were created for. And the other thing that I do to, and I wrote about this in Soul Retrieval, Harper let me add an afterword. I was very inspired by Bessel van der Kolk's work about how the body has to feel the healing in order for there to be a result. And practitioners were talking immediately after bringing the soul back. And so in my soul retrieval trainings for over 10 years now, I train people not to say a word for at least 20 minutes and play beautiful music and transfigure and just have the person feel, have them feel a metaphor of a flower that the sun is now shining through their body after a long rain. And I play my drum and rattles and my bowls and my bells and all my other shamanic instruments. So by the time that 20 minutes is up, I find that most clients actually don't even want to hear a story anymore. They feel so good.
I like that approach for sure. Yeah, and that just sounds like such a better aspect. In fact, I think the last soul retrieval I had must have been somebody trained by you, because that was more of the, and I felt that too, like that this is the embodied part of the spiritual self that I wanted to become. And things really kind of opened up after that. But, even with that first one, so I've had a few parts over the years be returned. And, it's never, I don't think that it's ever been really my specialty, but I've noticed that sometimes in the windwork training that people will have a spontaneous, like I was teaching the dynamics of creativity class, and people had a spontaneous, reawakening of their creative juices that we could only call a soul part, or that essence of that spirit. And like you said, I love that idea. Just thinking about it, the soul is this energy that's expansive and creative. Well, what better of a test than to think, oh, I just got some amazing story back. We love our stories. We're so invested in our stories.
I know. I used to tell clients, people are my biggest challenge. I would start with this. My biggest challenge in doing soul retrievals is people want to hear their stories instead of rejoicing in the fact that their soul is back. I mean, that's so amazing? And I'm the opposite of that. I've only had, I think, 3 soul retrievals, but I don't let anybody tell the story. I don't want to hear it. I just say, is my soul back? And that's all I want to know. Is my soul back?
And, it can really be powerful. I wasn't there, so this is hearsay, but there was a group of people hiking in Peru, one of the more rigorous trails, and one of the Sherpas, or the food people, fell off the mountain and really hurt himself, like on a real steep ledge. and that was what that's what the Pacos did, was they did a soul retrieval. And because they thought the other people who were there, and they were friends of mine, thought he was going to die that night, but they returned his soul, and the soul was enough to do the healing so that they could carry, and it was, we're talking about a real serious injury, so that they could carry him on a sling and get him off that mountain. But they did a soul retrieval for that.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. So, soul retrieval is caused by, in our culture, this is kind of the things we think about. Soul retrieval is caused by emotional, physical abuse, being in an accident, being in surgery. We oftentimes we hear people say, I'm not the same since my anesthesia or my accident, and they don't mean like a part of them woke up. It's a part of them went away. Immune deficiency issues, chronic illness, chronic depression, chronic suicidal tendencies, grief that never ends. There's a very normal period of grief, but when grief doesn't end, warriors, people who have done drugs, who've been addicted to drugs, all those things are signs of soul loss. And as I was saying, abuse, surgery, again, war, these kinds of things, illness, are causes of soul loss. Accidents are causes of soul loss, and then there's all the symptoms that come from it. I really believe that that the whole entire planet has lost its soul, because I'm talking about the human race, in that the conversations about how money is more important than a species. That, to me, that's a conversation from people who don't have a soul. Nobody ever chooses money over life. So the fact that our population is so into gathering resources instead of preserving nature is a sign of soul loss too. So there's collective soul loss that we can be dealing with. And I'm a person, I could be wrong. I don't know everything, as Renee knows. I don't know everything. I don't believe it's time for a collective soul retrieval, because I don't believe the human race knows how to take care of the soul of the collective. And I would never do a soul retrieval for a woman who was physically abused and was going to go back and be beaten immediately after a soul retrieval. Why would you do that to someone? Why would you bring them all the way back home and send them home to be beaten again? So why would we do a soul retrieval on the earth for it to be eaten again? So anyway, soul retrieval is a very big topic, but Renee felt that we're in the time of the COVID and so much trauma, and this is really a time for people to seek out soul retrievals if they think they need them. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, and soul retrieval, I would trust the shamanic teachers website to find somebody who can do that. And we thought what we would do is, we're not going to do a soul retrieval here, because Sandra and I believe that takes a lot of advanced training and a lot of personal work to be in that state, so you're not doing more harm than good. But we thought we would have you do a body scan and see if there's a chance that you might be needing that kind of work. So Sandra, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to do just a little bit of drumming. And what I want you to do while I drum is to close your eyes. And now remember, soul is essence. It's life force. It's our vitality. It's that part of ourselves that keeps us alive. So when we have our full soul, we see colors very brightly. We feel emotions in our body. We feel what we're touching. We smell really well. We hear. Our senses are engaged. We're awake. And so while I'm drumming, go within and see if everything that's been going on, the division, the COVID, the dissension, the fear, the anger, war, if any of that, if you feel like you're regulated, your energy's moving really well, and whatever's coming in, the trauma that's coming in has just been moving out really well, you're doing your spiritual practices. Yes, things are tough, but you're doing good. But if you go within and you start feeling empty spaces inside of yourself, life has no meaning anymore to you. Everything hurts. You're feeling anxious. How are you feeling? Do you feel your energy moving like a river? Is your energy moving like a storm that needs to be settled down? Do you feel too lethargic, apathetic? No passion moving through you? Does your body feel ill? Are you stuck looping old patterns over and over and over again and you can't break them? So just tune in and feel how your body's doing. And we want to leave in a state of feeling good, ready to have a good day. So instead of focusing on what you might be missing, let's focus on the gifts that you do have right now. You have your amazing heart that has the capacity to fill you up with so much love, unconditional love of the divine, unconditional love of yourself, that you feel filled with light and no further healing is needed. You might have your transfiguration practice, where you're always feeling your light moving through your cells and your body and radiating them out. So you don't need a healing right now. But if something feels off, if something feels disharmonious, it might be a time to seek out a shamanic practice. But for now, let's all take a deep breath and fill ourselves with beautiful images, our favorite textures and tastes, and know that the universe is always holding us in the greatest state of love. And healing will always come whenever we're ready for it. Everything that we're experiencing right now is part of our soul's journey. And sometimes the journey is turbulent and sometimes it's smooth, but it is your journey. So now it's time to come back and open your eyes and feel the good things that entered your space, the love that entered your space, the inspiration that Renee and I have shared. Open your eyes and see if you see a little bit more color, or feel your heart beating a little stronger. Open your eyes and be back and just reflect. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. That was great.
Yeah, so the point was not to leave you feeling like you need something right now and that you're not okay, because we're all okay. I could use the soul retrieval right now, but my spiritual practices are doing what they need to do. They're bringing light into me. So it's not anything to feel like I have to run out and get this immediately. It's like noticing, do I need to start doing more exercise? Do I need to start working on my immune system? It's taking a review of what could use some healing. And if you find that you think that some shamanic healing would be good for you, I've trained some amazing practitioners and teachers, and they're listed on shamanicteachers.com, shamanicteachers.com.
Absolutely. And and also, if you're not so great at tracking, I've actually been training some of my 10-month apprentice people how to do wind tracking, where you actually use your wind whistle to help track through somebody's system. And I'm not going to say that they can do soul retrievals, but if you need some help tracking and pinpointing, I have some good people that I could recommend as well. But go to one of Sandra's teachers, absolutely, for the soul retrieval. And if you want to know more about it, I believe the book is still available on Amazon.
Oh my God, the book is selling better than ever. It's always sold from the day. It was one of the first books on shamanism. So it's always sold amazing, and people, it was funny though. I saw a comment the other someday on Facebook before I went off social media saying, I found the most ancient book so long ago. It's really ancient. And it has some really good information in it. It was Soul Retrieval by Sandra Ingerman.
That's so funny. I know we become the ancient. We're in trouble when we become the ancient ones. But I was sitting here and this morning we've had 10,000 downloads on Buzzsprout.
Wow.
So about a month or so ago, I said, Sandra, I'm expanding out because I do the social media part, and we share talent, we share our abilities really well. And I'm going to Buzzsprout. So I put us out on Buzzsprout, and 10,000 downloads. That's pretty good. I think it's really great within a month to have 10,000 downloads. I know that my boss's podcast had 20, so we're doing way better.
Oh, that's great.
I better get working on his, or I'm going to be without a job.
No, I need you on the Shamanscape.
No. I think we're doing great. And Sally says, "Oh, that was a great show."
And I just wanted to let everybody know that there's a free article. I keep changing the name of it. Abstract on Shamanism, Introduction to Shamanic Journeying, on sandraingerman.com, my website, which just got converted. So it's beautiful, and I hope you go there and look at it. But I have free articles, and I have articles on soul retrieval. So if you don't want to buy a book, you can really learn a lot from what I wrote in these articles.
Awesome. And make sure you follow us over at Shamans TV and make comments. We love comments, and share us. Let's get 20,000 downloads. Just imagine if the whole world was listening to the Shaman's Cave every week, what a better place it would be.
That's right. We would teach everybody how to give gratitude to the earth, air, water, and the sun and the fire, and we would be living in a completely different world right now. So give thanks, everybody. Give your appreciation. Fill yourself and the planet with love, and when you open your eyes, that's what you're going to see is love.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra.